Today I'm going to be chatting with the guys from Fleece Performance and talking about a brand new product that they have, which is Dodge transmission coolers. And I'm going to be going through them, what years that it works on, the kind of improvement you get versus stock, and then everything that comes in the kit. So I'm definitely looking forward to chatting with them today, learning more about it. Before we get to it, though, we have some major news. We just started a new clothing company called Rugged Threads Co. And I'm really proud of the team coming together with great ideas and designing different shirts that I guess represent the lifestyle, represent the things that we love as truck owners, outdoors enthusiasts. And it's, really at the heart of it, what we wanted to do was make shirts, hoodies, mugs, things like that, that we would wear ourselves, kind of like this shirt that I'm wearing today. So I'm really proud of the team and all the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into it to make this happen. If you go to ruggedthreadsco.com, you're going to find a whole lineup of different shirts and different merchandise. And it's not necessarily just focused on the Diesel podcast. Most of it isn't. We're going to put a link down below so you can check it out. But if you're looking for a way to support the podcast, it's a great way to be able to support us and also get some really cool gear. I wanted to give a shout out to one of our sponsors that helps make the Diesel podcast possible. Our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 40% off MSRP code for you. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code TDP40, you get 40% off retail. They've got a ton of choices for knives, different opening mechanisms, blade steel, blade shapes, different handle designs, and their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget. So if you need something for work or EDC, something around the job site, around the house, they've definitely got you covered. And we appreciate them offering this discount code just for Diesel podcast listeners. All right, let's get to today's podcast with Fleece Performance and talking about transmission coolers. How's it going today, guys? Looking forward to chatting with you about truck parts. I love when you guys have a truck there that we can kind of have as the backdrop and, see where the parts go and everything else. So how's it going?
Going good, man. Always happy to be on the pod.
Hey, great to see you, Patrick. Thanks.
I had a great time on the last one. There were a bunch of new releases that you guys had. I know from feedback with listeners and stuff, they were really excited about some 6.7 Power Stroke stuff and some other things you guys have. And I see them on the table there. Some upgrades. I wanted to have you guys tell me about those. What do you guys got there?
We got a whole bunch of new products to talk about.
First thing, hey, Patrick, we're going to talk about today, there's going to be our trans cooler kit that we came out with for the 94 to 09 Rams. This kit is something we've been working on for a little over a year, and a product that I think has really been a hole in the market for. I'm going to let John talk a little bit about some of the engineering that went into the product itself, and we're going to talk a little bit about the results that we're seeing out in the field as well.
Yeah, so
okay.
Just to clarify, there's actually 3 different part numbers. So we created 3 kits. One is a second gen trans cooler and line kit, which is 94 to 94 to 02, 03 to 07, and then 07.5 to 09. So we've covered the second gen and then the 2 third gen, obviously the 48 and the 68 trucks. So this project actually started here in our engineering group almost 3 years ago, and it's kind of morphed several times. The project started, though, as a universal trans cooler kit, and the thought was, let's make a transmission cooler that will fit kind of for everybody, and guys can take it and do whatever they want with it. And as we were developing that product, it became more and more difficult. And realized that maybe that's not the best way to approach this product. For instance, on a second gen like this truck, we don't have the space claim to put the same cooler that we have in the third gen in this truck. And I just wasn't super happy with what we had. We kind of paused for a minute and started trying to figure out how we wanted to go forward and if it was going to be a viable product for us. In the meantime, we had an employee that works here who has a second gen truck, and it just so happens we were working on that truck, and I was underneath it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is leaking trans fluid everywhere. We get underneath the thing, and it's the old, it's a 12 valve, right? It's just sweating some horsepower, and I'm like, man, this is awful. So I started looking at the transmission lines on this thing, and I'm like, we should make lines because these things are leaking from every single connection point possible. And for the guys that are familiar with those trans lines, they go from a hard line to like a soft line, back to a hard line, back to a soft line, back to a hard line. There's several different connections. And this particular truck, like I said, was leaking from every one of those. So we started talking about making a transline kit similar to what we have for the GM trucks, and got to the point of connection of the line to the cooler. And we looked at some of the, other competitors' products on the market and felt like putting a hose clamp, on the
barb fitting,
on the
like
hose.
some
It
of
just
those
was
were-
kind of, I don't know, not quite up to our standard.
No, and they were also a key area, I think, for people that were installing those today, that's where they were getting the leaks at.
Yeah.
Where they're at that
Yep.
leak point. And we took this concept out to the dealers at some of the events that we were at, and a lot of the feedback we got was people were very receptive to a complete kit. They wanted something that was going to be a drop-in replacement to the stock cooler, as well as going to provide a new line setup. The point that John was describing, where really they wanted a new line set from the cooler all the way back to the transmission.
Sorry, Chase is dying on an engine in the background. I don't know.
I heard something cool in the background there.
Yep. That happens from time to time around here.
So anyhow, our goal was really to come up with a product that was going to be a drop-in replacement for the stock transmission cooler. And you spend time looking on the market. There really just weren't a lot of good options out there. Like John said, we were working to develop something over a very long period of time. They had an opportunity to work with a company local to us in the development of this, and what we ended up with was a drop-in replacement cooler, but as opposed to using some of the barb line connections, we ended up with AN hose connections and lines at each one of the connection points, a heavy-duty flexible line to make it easy for the individual to install it. But the last piece that was super important to us was the performance. Now, everybody that tows with these trucks complains about overheating conditions, and as well as we can talk about the use of that heat exchanger and whether or not to keep it, and the impact on cooling of the transmission. Where we ended up with was a product that provides almost 2 times the heat rejection of the stock trans cooler, as well as is twice as efficient.
Yep.
And for a guy who's towing, that results in anywhere from 8 to 15 degrees temperature reduction on the output of the cooler versus stock, which we think is pretty significant.
And we did some extensive wind tunnel testing with these coolers, and came out with some very good data to support Jeff's statement just now. And that was very important to us too in developing this product, was to have the factual data to stand on and say, hey, our product is better than anything else on the market. Anytime we can solve a problem and come up with an elegant solution like this, easy to install, drop in. Like I said, when we were working on the cooler, the factory fitment was key. The other thing too on these coolers that's really important is we 100% leak test these things. So they get pressure checked every single part. And so the quality control that's baked into the process is also something that we're super proud of. These are made here in Indianapolis. So we partner with another company local to us. So this is another made in the USA product, and we're pretty excited for it.
Well, it solves a bunch of major problems, but I'm thinking of like those trucks that tow where you get a little bit more power with them and you get some mileage on the truck, you start to get those leaks, and then people will start to say, hey, my transmission is getting warm, especially if it's a stock transmission and you have the converter slip and all the things that just naturally happen on a 47 or 48 RE or a 68 RFE. Those temps start to climb, and then it inevitably leads to, I need to do a new transmission. And I know a lot of the transmission shops out there, when you have a failure and there's metal in the fluid or something like that, they want to replace everything, and not just for themselves but for the customer, because they don't want to have an issue or contamination in there. And it was always so hard to find a complete quality kit to be able to do that. It was like you mentioned, with all the different connections and all the different things. Well, how do you kind of piece it together, or what kind of cooler are you going to use, or do I want to go back with a stock one? I want something that's more capable. So it addresses everything from a stock truck to something that maybe modified, maybe you have a built transmission, and you want a fresh system to be able to protect that investment.
For sure. And, I think with a lot of these parts, making complete kits, like you said, a complete solution, right down to every nut and bolt that you need to install the kit, it's all there. So believe it or not, we spent a lot of time sourcing the right clamps, and there's on the second gen kit, there's actually one bolt. It's a studded bolt that we couldn't find anywhere, and it's a fastener that we use to tie the lines up underneath the truck. So we just made it.
You can't really understate that enough. Like, I had a truck I did a transmission swap on a long time ago, and one of the biggest nightmares of it was trying to find all the parts to be able, because I had to do new lines, trying to find it all and source it all, and it wasn't local, and ordering it and all that stuff. It was such a nightmare. That was actually the biggest issue with it. So having it all together in one kit, so if I want to tackle this on a weekend, or if you're a shop owner out there and time is money and you have everything you need all at once, that's pretty important.
One thing too to address on these kits, I get this question a lot, and I know Jeff has too, and he touched on this earlier, was the heat exchanger. We're bypassing the heat exchanger with these kits. I'm not going to make any promises, but we have had several people suggest that they would like to see possibly something like that. And so we are, without letting too much information out there, we are looking at that too. So in the future, we may have an offering for the guys that want to run a heat exchanger, but let's do it in a way that's a better solution than what's currently out there. So
for someone who may not be familiar, maybe they're new to a second gen, third gen, or these trucks, can you explain what the heat exchanger is, what it does, and then why somebody wants to bypass it, and maybe why somebody doesn't want to bypass it?
Go for it.
So, a lot of times the heat exchangers will leak. They're expensive, and especially on these older trucks, they're getting harder to find. So a lot of guys will just get rid of them. They'll take them out of the system. The heat exchanger will take engine coolant and, basically stabilize the trans temps using that. But for a lot of guys, it doesn't really. It's more of a problem part than something that's beneficial. Some guys, though, believe heavily in it. I talked to a dealer that was out in California when we were on a sales trip earlier this year, and he was very adamant that he wants to see those things. But the heat exchanger is a part that will cause a lot of premature failures because of they're prone to cracking, breaking, and, like I said, leaking. So.
Is the cracking part, is that where sometimes I've read, and I'm not sure, but when they crack, you can get a mixture of the coolant and the transmission fluid together, and then that's a whole issue?
Yep, it's 100%. It's a nightmare. And so, like I said, a lot of times in the industry, the thought is let's just bypass it or get around it. And for us, because of the connection point, we felt it was a big deal. And we looked at what is the biggest group of people that we can reach with this product. And for the majority of people, bypassing that heat exchanger is what the industry does. Not saying that, like I said, we're not looking at coming up with a solution for that, for the guys that do want to use the heat exchanger. We want to make sure, though, that we're making parts that are better than what came on these trucks. And so, again, parts like that, they take a lot of time to develop. They take a lot of time to make sure that we're testing, getting good data, and putting something out there that we can rely on.
So with the three part numbers you mentioned, so one will cover the 94 to 02, so that cooler and those lines are specific to that body style truck. And then the 03 to 07s are specific to that 48 RE, 5.9 common rail. And then the 07.5 to 09, of course, that's going to change with the 6.7 and the 68 RP, but they're very specific to those models.
Correct. Yep. And that's going to be the parts kits that come in the kits. So the 03 to 09 kits, they're all the same cooler, but the 03 to 07 kit has different lines than the 07.5 to 09 kit. Obviously different transmission, we're routing different. The components inside those kits are different. That's what makes them specific to one another.
And are these available like right now? Like if I jumped on the Fleece site, I could order one up, or is it coming up here pretty soon?
Oh, they are.
better be.
We actually released them to the market here on Monday of this week. So yes, they are available. They're available on our website. They're available on any of our resellers' websites and the dealer channel. They're available for all Fleece products. So yes, they are available now.
And I think it's cool to note too, just to touch on this, because I think it's one thing when we're making products that a lot of people don't see and they don't think about, but the packaging. We actually this part pushed us to source some different equipment, and it's something, like I said, that is commonly overlooked. Is how are we going to take this part and ship it so it doesn't get damaged? How are we going to? How are we going to put this in a box so when you open it up, it looks the part, as much as it's going to function like it should?
Yeah, I'll do the best I can, Patrick, to show this, but I don't think there's a service shop out there that hasn't purchased a radiator or a cooler from some other manufacturers, and you receive it, and there's
And the
three
fins are
holes.
bent.
Oh, no, there are holes in the box. I mean, it's happened to me personally on a number of vehicles where I get it and there's holes in the box and parts are hanging out. And I'm thinking, I'm going to open this up. It's going to look terrible. What are the chances to send this back? There's nothing worse than receiving a product and then having to figure out how to get it replaced with the seller. This kit is the second gen kit. I've taken the lines out of it so you can see, but like John mentioned, we've invested in new skin packing machines and the ability to package this in a manner that secures the cooler itself and provides protection to the product.
And don't worry, I know you can't see it, but there's still Fleece beer koozie in there.
Inside there, I don't want it to fall on the floor.
Well, that's a really important part of it, because you're right. You get this package and it doesn't matter whether it's a complex part or a simple part. And, going from point A to point B with the carriers, they're not, babying it the whole way and kind of coddling the package the whole time. And sometimes you get that box and it looks like it's been used for kickball or something and it's kicked in on the side. And if you're doing this project on a weekend or it's like a Friday and you're trying to get the customer's truck out of the shop and something's bent or damaged, you're done. And
you can't see it, but there's a mezzanine up here, and we take, from time to time on certain products, we'll throw boxes off the mezzanine just to see if the test. But we have customers. We have a good friend out in California that we work with a lot, and we'll just ship new products to him just to see if the box will show up in one piece. So something that a lot of people don't think about, but it takes a ton of time and effort. So just wanted to touch on that for a minute.
Well, we've talked a lot on the podcast before about these products where you guys you look at this platform of truck, this year range, and it could be 5 years old, 2 years old, 20 years old. And you say, well, what's failing on them? What does it need to stay on the road? And we've seen the OEM support kind of trickle off over the years, where sometimes you can't buy any of these parts. You can't fix any of these things. So as a truck owner, you can't find the type of part that you need. Or if you do, it's OEM and it already failed on you. You want something better. So I love the approach of, if I had a 94 Ram and I'm having leaking transmission lines, my temps are getting up there. I just bought, an upgraded transmission. I want to start fresh. I can get everything that I need, or the shop I take it to can get everything they need. And it's all done, and I can continue to enjoy that truck, which I think this industry has really needed. That is, we're keeping these trucks a little bit longer, or we're wanting to kind of go back and, enjoy something we couldn't maybe afford at the time or didn't have the opportunity. And we want, the second gen or this third gen to last and be reliable.
Well, I think there's a ton of opportunity in the older vehicles. Although there's less of them out there, parts like you kind of alluded to, they're getting harder and harder to find. And a lot of the stuff that's out there isn't, I would say, as good, or maybe when it was developed, there wasn't as much attention to detail. And so there's an opportunity to look at some of these older vehicles and say, hey, man, guys love these trucks. Guys are buying these things up. And you see it on the Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, the value of older trucks after COVID, it went through the roof. So.
Yep.
But tell you what, I think, Patrick, that's an excellent segue, though, into another new part that we released this week, because you were just talking about parts that leak.
Yeah.
So this is off, I don't know what year this one came off of, but
This is a smooth transition.
It was smooth, yeah.
It was an unplanned smooth transition. You're getting good at this, Jeff.
Planned smoothness. This is the coolant feed line for the heater core. It comes in from the cylinder head. This is from an 03 all the way up to current 2024 Ram. And it has the quick disconnect fitting that then threads down into the cylinder head. That is one of those primary areas that we found to be prone to leakage over time. And to your point, there just weren't really good solutions. You can go back out and you can find the Gates hose or whomever makes another replacement hose, but you're ultimately not getting rid of that quick disconnect fitting that's taking all the heat off the engine. The O-rings get dry, they crack. The plastic on that quick disconnect, it gets dry, it cracks, and then you end up with a leak there. So this was one of those parts that the guys were really focused on making a better part to go in place of that.
This is a good example too. From a product development standpoint, we purchase trucks and use them to make products. And one of the trucks here at the shop had this line leaking. And when you're tuned into that stuff and you see a line leaking on a truck, it's like, how do we make that part? That's a problem.
Yeah.
And what we came up with was, it's a relatively simple solution, but I think for this problem, a simple solution is what we needed. So I'll hand that to you. We formed a silicone hose, and then I don't know if you have a loose fitting, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
But essentially, we made our own stainless steel fitting. I don't know if you can see that well.
Yeah.
But we made this fitting on our lathe and formed this hose, and then went after how many trucks can we make this fit. And we came up with a part, like Jeff said, that fits 03 to 2024 trucks. So
I don't know that we make a part that has that
broad of coverage.
To be honest. That's probably the broadest coverage part we make.
But this is a part that if you own a Ram truck long enough, you're probably going to need something to fix it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I ran into that on one of mine. It didn't take very long either. It started to leak there. And at that time, there was no solution. There wasn't anything.
What are you driving now?
It's an 07 59.
Oh, well, you want to send you one?
Oh, you guys have a lot of parts that I either need or I'm going to need here pretty soon.
Hey, email me. Don't send the list to Jeff. All right.
You were mentioning kind of along the lines too of having all the parts you need when you're doing an install, and that is something that's always front and center of in our mind when we're developing those kits. We work on our carts and trucks no different than anybody else, and we probably start our projects about the same time, which is Sunday at 9 p.m. And at that point in time, you need everything available at your hands to do the work. And one of the things that we included in this kit, just to draw that point home, is some Permatex sealant. That's one of those things. If you have sealant in your garage that you've used, it's probably, you got 2 tubes that are dried up and you can't use anymore, and one that you're like cutting the tube in half, trying to squeeze a little bit out of it to get some to take care of the job you have in front of you. But this kit includes a tube of Permatex sealant to make it easy for people at 10 o'clock on Sunday night.
Like, I think why that's important is I keep emphasizing we want to make complete kits. So when you get a kit from us, it's got everything you need to install our part. Obviously, we're not going to send a box of Snap-on tools, right? So some things are going to be provided by you, but a simple thing like this, thread sealant, it's kind of along the same lines as the packaging. People don't always think about that, but when you have it, it's super handy, and when you don't, you wish you did. So
I bet you guys get a lot of feedback from shops and from customers as well with what they expect from a product, a purchase, a packaging standpoint is different than it used to be. And, when I get something, I don't want to have to go to the auto parts store or a hardware store and get something, or I don't want to have to wait and call later and say, hey, I need this. It doesn't fit my year range or whatever it might. I just, as a consumer, I think it's changed so much. We don't want that. We just want to order something. It shows up at our door. We can proceed. So I think like the approach that you guys have, not just with this, but the other things that we've talked about, the other products, I see it being at the forefront of how the diesel aftermarket has needed to change, and you guys have just kind of pushed it and are kind of leading that charge with it, is really servicing the end user, not just from, hey, we can make more power, give you lower EGTs, get rid of your transmission leaks. Like, I want to make sure it gets there and it arrives the way it should. I want to make sure you have this sealant when you get it, because, consumers, they just won't stand for that stuff anymore. Like, they don't want to, when they get something, they want it to work.
I think it's important. Jeff and I are both consumers. We buy stuff just like everybody else. So when we're thinking about things, we try to look through the finishing details from the lens of a consumer. But there's also other things that come into play. We spec, a thread sealant because we know it works, right? So
Yeah.
That might reduce a frustrated customer because, to Jeff's point, he might have used some old stuff that was in his garage that's been sitting on the shelf for 20 years.
Three tubes of sealer in my toolbox. There's probably one that I can get something out of.
And that's the reality is in today's day and age, you're going to get that phone call like, hey, man, even though I installed this part wrong, I'm mad at you because it's leaking now, and we have to spend time to go back through that. So if we can kind of attack the problem or provide a solution up front so that it's not even a thought, everybody wins.
Yeah, I love that approach. And especially like you'd asked me earlier what I drive. Well, it's an older truck, and I know a lot of people that have older trucks or they buy one. They always wanted it, and we're not necessarily looking to make tons of power with it. We just want to have it start up every day, drive it down the road, enjoy it. And that's where like this transmission cooler lines and the cooler itself, it really appeals to me, especially with one of those older trucks, is I know I'm going to hit that point where that transmission fails. I know it's coming any day now. And now I don't have to go back with stock, or I can just get the part number, order it up, and give it to the transmission guy, or he can order it for me, and I'm just set to go. I don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, last time we were here with you, we talked about some of the new Ford parts that we were making.
Yep.
We got to shift away from some of the Ram products, but we talked about our power flow that we made for the 11 to 16. Did we talk about the underhood filter as well last time?
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, we launched that product. I guess it would be March, I think, when we talked about that last with you, Patrick, and it's had a great reception in the marketplace. That's the drop-in underhood filter for the 11 to current, so 2024 Ford 6.7 Power Strokes. We put that out in the market, and we got some really interesting feedback from folks who were installing aftermarket lift pumps. So those already had, let's say, a couple filters underneath the bed. And one of the requests that we had was for a fuel filter bypass, because people said, hey, I don't actually want to even use a filter anymore up top. I want to have a bypass. Do you have something you can come up with? And so we'll have this ready here within the next 2-3 weeks. So we're excited to show it. But it's a fuel filter bypass that's a drop-in for the Ford 6.7. So same model year and fitment, 11 all the way to 2024. It doesn't require any cutting of the lines, anything to be removed from the engine. You can simply drop that in and replace that factory underhood filter with this bypass.
Yep, same locking system as this part. Like Jeff said, just no filter provision.
The other thing that's really nice about this, it's not shown here on the part that we brought with us today, but if you want to monitor your lift pump pressure, you can pull that cap off the side. You can put a fitting in there for a Dash 8 O-ring boss to a 1/8 MPT and run that to your gauge pod so you can monitor your lift pump pressure if you want.
That's really cool. So it's completely drop-in too. So that's like, that's appealing to me.
Super easy part. I mean, like I said, it's essentially the same thing that this is without a filter provision. And as soon as we released this, like Jeff said, we started getting requests like, "Hey, man, we love that, but can we get a something to bypass the underhood filter because I've got I've already got a couple filters on my truck. And the reality is a lot of these Ford trucks, these guys some of them have 3 or 4 fuel filters on them. By the time you start looking at, whether you have an aftermarket lift pump or the factory filtration plus a disaster prevention kit, you start going through all the different systems that are available for these things, it gets kind of redundant. So this plays in well though with this part Jeff's got in his hand.
Now last time, Patrick, we shared with you the lift pump, so the power flow setup for the 11 to 16. What John's got is our sure flows. That's the sending unit portion. There's no pumps in the bucket. The easiest way to identify that is that it uses an orange bucket as opposed to the yellow buckets that have the pumps in there. So this is a sending unit that is designed to replace the factory unit on the 11 to 16 trucks. It can be a total drop-in replacement, but it's also designed with some larger pickup tubes so that it can be coupled with an aftermarket pump. So for those customers that are running an aftermarket lift pump that they're mounting on the rails and they don't want to install a sump, they don't want to install a pickup tube, they don't want to have to deal with the quarter tank problems, this is that solution for them.
It's a good example of a part that, with some collaboration with even some of our competitors to work together, because our parts oftentimes get used with one another. So we actually tested, some of the aftermarket or some of our competitors' products just to make sure that our part worked as good as it possibly could with their products, because a lot of people are buying our SureFlows to use with, like Jeff said,
whether it be a Fass or an Aerodog pump, and we work closely with those guys in the development of this, and to make sure that both companies and groups were happy with the performance from a flow rate perspective, a noise perspective, etc.
Yep,
that's really cool, because sometimes you get, when you're buying parts or setting up your truck, you don't necessarily know how well things are going to play with each other or work, or is it going to impact it at all. So to hear about the collaboration and the work together to be able to accommodate, whatever somebody might have on their trucks, that's really cool.
Yep. Like, it's very configurable part. I love SureFlows. This is one of my favorite products that we produce here, because there's so many different ways you can use this part. Like Jeff said, this will drop right in. It is plug and play replacement for an 11 to 16 power stroke sending unit. But you can take these fittings out. You can plumb it with AN fittings. You can do kind of however you want to do it. Trying to think what other ways we've rigged this up, but
rig it up. Hopefully we didn't rig too much up.
We've got the long bed here,
and a long bed, a short bed, and the other thing we need to make sure everybody knows too is that these have also been tested, and we collaborated with Titan and S&B.
Yes.
So these fit.
Those are the other two things we rigged these up.
Yeah, in S&B and Titan tanks. It works with Fass. It works with Aerodog. It works with all the major suppliers in the aftermarket that guys are looking for.
Yep.
I like how modular it is. Like, I didn't understand how it would work with all these. What if I have a bigger fuel tank, or what if I'm running this, or what if I'm running that? The modularity is really awesome.
Yep. And we put an additional port here. So if you're going to run a second return, there's 2 clear return straws in here. But you can take this Dash 8 port plug out, and you can put another fitting in here to return a second return into the bucket. But because we're returning everything into the bucket, you're not going to run into those quarter tank issues. Like I said, this couples well with just about anything on the market. Price point work.
$360 is the MAP price for that part.
Yep.
And that's across the board. So all Ford, GM, Ram trucks, it's the same price for that part.
Yeah, that quarter tank issue is not fun to deal with. That's not. Once you experience that once, you definitely don't want to experience it again. So it's
SureFlow for your truck, Patrick.
I've experienced the zero tank problem at least twice.
Yeah.
So that fits the 11 to 16s.
Yes.
Yes. And so we don't have it here on the table, but the next one that's right behind these that we think is going to be really well accepted in the marketplace. And honestly, there's a huge need for it. I'll let John talk about it because I know he loves it. He's been working on a lot, but I'll let you drop it.
Yeah, the next SureFlow, and it will probably be our next product release, will be the 99 to 07 7.3 and 6 liter SureFlows. And that product does a host of things, but anytime you solve a problem, which is on those trucks, the sending units literally fall apart in the tanks. It is one of the most crude sending units I've seen in a diesel pickup truck. And so we're going to replace that with one of our nice SureFlows. It drops right in the tank, and it does everything that all of our SureFlows do. But in that situation, it's not just about trying to make a part that works with an aftermarket lift pump. We're legitimately fixing a problem that there's not currently a good solution for on the market. And we all know that is such a huge range of trucks. There's so many 6-liter pickup trucks still on the road today.
Yep.
We don't have a cabin chassis model yet. I got that question a lot, but right now we're focused on getting the pickup truck version.
Along the lines of that 6-liter, I don't know how familiar you are with those, Patrick, but we were just changing one out yesterday, and either that suction boot or foot, I guess I call it suction screen on the bottom, either is broken off or the sending unit has fallen off of the rod, and or rust has just caused everything inside there to collapse.
Or the resistor card doesn't work at all. You don't have a functioning dash, fuel gauge on your dash. It's going to be a huge product for the market. And like I said, a great example of looking backwards at some of the older trucks and giving them some love.
Yeah, there's a ton of them that are out there, and get lots of feedback from people with 99 to 07s, and they're buying them, they're wanting to do stuff to them, they're wanting to make them more reliable. And we touched on it earlier where there either wasn't anything in the aftermarket that was better to replace it with, or the OEMs stop offering these parts and you can't get anything and you kind of feel stuck. And so to see, kind of breathe a new life into them.
And if you're one of those OBS guys out there with the 7.3, don't worry, I'm thinking about you, okay? It's on my mind right now. I got just hang tight.
Okay, so the other thing you mentioned there, Patrick, was availability. And the another request we've had that we're working on is also very close. I would say the cabin chassis market for the Ram trucks. If you've tried to get a sending unit or a lift pump for those, I would be in this case be a lift pump, but if you try to get those parts, that cabin chassis market is really dried up, and the guys are having a hard time finding the replacement parts for those. That will also be right in line, probably.
Yeah.
It's going to be this summer here. We'll have a power flow available for the 11 to
24 cabin chassis
Ram pickups. So I think that's going to be an excellent product for a market that's really, really underserved and doesn't have any good options today. And to be frank, it'll actually be much less expensive than the OE options today. I think the OE pumps were in excess of $1,000.
Yes, very expensive.
Yeah, so
Wow.
a lower cost pump option as well for the cabin chassis guys.
I love how you guys are like 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, because sometimes we'll have a conversation and the podcast will release and I'm really excited, about it, to whatever product we're discussing. And then somebody will always bring up like a cabin chassis model or this year range, and they'll say, what about my truck? So you guys are like 3 steps ahead and already thinking about that. So when I'm sure somebody with like an OBS Ford or something else is out there thinking, well, that's really cool. It's awesome for 6.7s, but I got a 97. What do they have for me? Well, you guys addressed it already, or are working on it. So that's really cool.
We would love to hear from all your listeners about what they do need, because the products that we bring to market, those ideas and those needs, they come to us from the dealers and from customers that are having a hard time finding those parts. And the more of that information we can bring in, the more it helps us in prioritizing the development of new products.
We do have another product that is released, and it has nothing to do with a diesel pickup truck, but it's actually for a Toyota Tacoma. So I know that's kind of a departure from what Fleece normally does, but let's just call it us dabbling in different markets. And I know a lot of people have either heard of or purchased our All Lights On product.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yep.
We came out with a All Lights On for the Toyota Tundra about a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've been working on Tacoma version. So we just released the Toyota Tacoma All Lights On, and this is one of Jeff's favorite products.
Oh, I love those products. Yeah, I mean, I think they're great. They're an easy part. They solve a problem that everybody wants. Everybody's got headlights on their vehicle, so there's a big market available for it. And for us, it lets us get into some other markets that we haven't necessarily been in. So
it's a cool part too, because it takes about, I don't know,
5 minutes.
If that. I mean, it take Jeff 5 minutes. It takes me about, maybe one. But it's a super easy product to install. Hardest thing is just find a pair of pliers to go pull a relay out of the fuse box, pop it in there. Basically, when you flip on your high beams with our All Lights On installed, you're going to get your highs, your lows, and your fogs all at one time. So when I think about, I do a lot of hunting in the fall and fishing in the summer. So there's some early mornings, and that's kind of what I do in my free time. I think about it a lot when I'm driving, especially in the fall, and deer and things like that are more active and running around. Driving on some of those gravel roads in the dark, having that extra light could be the difference between, hitting a deer or missing a deer, or, just seeing through some of those, tough conditions. But it's an inexpensive part. It's simple to install. And like I said, it's kind of a departure from the diesel scene. But I didn't realize how many Tacomas were on the road until I started thinking about Toyota Tacomas. And now everywhere I go, like, all I see is Tacomas, tacos.
Oh yeah, it's a huge market, and they're really passionate. Really passionate about their vehicles, and it's kind of like one of those quality of life upgrades, like you mentioned, being on a gravel road or in the fall, and I'm here in the mountains, and you head up there, and it's really dark. There's not a lot of lighting. If there's most of the time there's no lighting if the sun's not out, and so it's there's animals out there and other things, and just being able to have all the lights on is it's nice when you're heading up to the lake or going someplace, and being able to address that. And there is some crossover too with the diesel stuff. I know, guys might drive them every day, but they have an off-road rig or something that they like to take, down trails and stuff. So,
and that part covers 2016 to 2023. So that's a huge range of trucks, and one that I think there's a lot of trucks in. But I think, to your point, like, I owned one at one point in my life and I loved it. I still think about that truck every once in a while as one of my favorite trucks. It was just a fun truck to own. So
yeah. Very cool. So now if people want to check out the products we talked about today, or they want to, just see when you guys release stuff, they just go to fleeceperformance.com, follow you guys on, Instagram, the social media channels, and you guys drop those releases, and, if they have questions, that's how they can reach out to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. All the new products that we shared here, with the exceptions of the ones we haven't released yet, are on the website and available.
Very cool. I appreciate you guys' time today. I love when you guys have the truck and the parts there, and we can see them. I know our YouTube audience really loves when they can see the part, and people on podcast apps, like, head over to YouTube, check it out. Follow Fleece on social media. You guys do an awesome job with showing new products, showing things you guys are working on. Like, I saw some of these, you guys have released them recently. I'm scrolling through Instagram, I see it, and I'm like, oh, cool. I hope we could talk about that on a podcast. And so it's cool to connect with you guys today in the shop there, and see these new products that are hitting the market.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun year. I keep joking around saying it's Ford summer around here because we're coming out with so many parts for Power Stroke trucks. But we have a guy that handles all of our apparel, and he refuses to make me a shirt that says Ford summer. But if I'm gonna wear it on the podcast, because that's kind of the market we're driving in, and I'm excited about some of the stuff that is coming up here. We've got some really neat stuff to show you.
Yeah.
So
You know, how about we'll plan the next time we talk with you, we'll bring some more Ford parts, some new stuff we're excited about, and we'll keep it rolling.
There's some stuff maybe just right around the corner here that I can see that, you know.
Well, you know, I'll be bugging you guys to come back on and talk about them. I love to be able to chat with you guys like right when the products release or you know, like soon after, because the interest peaks and then people have questions, and I like to just kind of be in the know and then get the behind the scenes, you know, information, like I just talked about engineering and tackling the problem and the packaging and all that stuff. Helps me understand more of the products that are out there, the brand philosophy, which is huge, and then ultimately what I can put on my truck to make it run the best that it can. So again, guys, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, if you're looking for a way to support the Diesel podcast, want to get some cool gear, we are really excited. We just launched a new clothing store, our own. I'm proud of the team coming together with great ideas and putting a lot of work into designing, you know, the shirts and everything that goes into the apparel. It's called Rugged Threads Co. You're going to find a link down below for it. And our goal with it was to come up with different designs or different things to represent the lifestyle, like the shirt I'm wearing here. So it's really cool. So much effort was put into it, and we wanted to make sure that we had things that we wear ourselves, you know, things that represented, you know, who we are, things we like to do with trucks, outside of trucks. So if you're looking for a way to support the podcast, go to ruggedthreadsco.com. You're going to find a link down below for it, and check it out. We're really excited to be able to launch it for you guys. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our sponsors that helps make the Diesel podcast possible. Kershaw Knives has a complete lineup of knives really designed to meet any budget. So if you're looking for a particular blade steel or blade shape, different handle design, different opening mechanism, they've got a complete lineup, and they're giving a 40% off MSRP code just for Diesel podcast listeners. So use code TDP40 at kershaw.kaiusa.com. So it's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear, and we appreciate them offering that for you guys. I also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters: Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, CUTTERUP Rob, J Cole, Colby, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 8 of the Diesel podcast, and look forward to bringing you guys more of the content that you want to hear in 2024. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.